Right, hiya guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room, the wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. What's that, sorry? Oh, try and be more energetic than Tim Cook doing the flag waving. I've got you, no problem. Right, guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room, the wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. The US Grand Prix has come to a close, and what could be said about that race? It had it all, didn't it? We had slow pit stops, we had some great overtaking, we had midfield battles, we had a fight at the front, we had Latifi being Latifi again, we had Ricciardo being Ricciardo again, and we had a bullshit FIA penalty, but we'll all come to that in a moment, of course. If you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Look out for bonus points, though. They're sometimes on offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race weekend, and on the very, very rare occasion, I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. So, we're going to kick things off, of course, with the race winner, Max Verstappen. Wow, oh wow, oh wow. He had it all to do, didn't he, really? He had it all to do. It was an okay qualifying by him. He was in... starting in P3, wasn't he? Well, qualified P3, of course, elevated to P2 with Shalala's penalty. What could be said, really, for Max's race? He got off the line really, really well. Turn 1... into first place, Sainz got spun around and tagged, and it really just looked like Verstappen were just going to be a controlled, easy win. We'll just do whatever Mercedes do, just copy Hamilton, and we'll be fine. But all was not fine, was it? With the 12-second pit stop in his second stop, it meant that Hamilton was 5 seconds ahead up the road of him. It meant that Charles Leclerc got ahead of him as well. It was down to third, and he had it all to do, but he did a really good job. Stuck behind Charles for a couple of laps, dispatched of him quickly, and then was on the hunting down Lewis Hamilton, who was doing a cracking job in that Mercedes. Unfortunately, though, for Hamilton, the hard tyres just weren't working out as well as Max's mediums. And overall, the Mercedes still just doesn't have the pace to hold off the likes of the Red Bull, but it was really encouraging to see how well he did against the Ferraris, because Leclerc had no pace at all to go catch Hamilton. It was only Max that was doing that. So, yeah, it was really encouraging to see. And a good thing to notice as well is that Perez was really on the hunt as well at the end there. So Red Bull have some fantastic pace when they get down to low fuel modes compared to other cars, because once they start running out of fuel, those Red Bulls fly even more than they already are. But yeah, Max eventually hunted him down, and with just a few laps left, Hamilton had to relinquish the position. A fantastic dive into turn 12 after the long straight by Max meant he got ahead and took a brilliant race victory. Yeah, it was a great weekend overall. It was a great weekend, of course, for Red Bull, with the passing of Dietrich Mateschitz, of course, during the weekend. It was such a shame that Dietrich couldn't see him wrap up another Constructors' title, but I'm sure he'd have known before his passing that it was all but inevitable that that was going to happen. And it was great that Max wrapped up the championship in whatever fashion it was, but it was great that he got to witness Max wrapping up the championship there in Japan as well, just a couple of weeks ago. It was kind of nice that happened, really, that he saw him end with the championship once again, and that they're on the brink of the Constructors. And to win the Constructors like they did, in style, with a win, I think Dietrich would have been proud. Thoughts go out to the family, friends, and the Red Bull team, of course, for the passing of Dietrich, anyone that knew him. Apparently he was a very private man, which is why we don't really know that much about him, but the stories keep coming out now after his passing, and he sounded like a real character. So, yeah, will be sadly missed among the paddock, and yeah, rest in peace to Dietrich. And for Max Verstappen this weekend, it is a perfect 10 for his race total overall. He did a great job there. I was on the cusp of awarding him bonus points, but then he had that moan on the radio, didn't he? Oh, brilliant, fucking brilliant. Well, we fucked it here, and because he had a slow stop and he came out third, and then they were like, look, we win together, we lose together, Max. We're in this as a team, and in this as a team you are. So yeah, yeah, great overall. 10 points is fully deserved. Qualifying, I think Ferraris have got the 1 lap pace, but then look at the race pace, the Ferraris are nowhere really. So yeah, overall 10 points to Max Verstappen. Then we come to Lewis Hamilton in second place, the first of the Mercedes drivers, and what a cracking race by Lewis. Honestly, a fabulous drive. They said they were hoping for something special here at Austin, but when they hope for something special, they always just tend to fall short, don't they? And in some respects, they did fall short this weekend because the qualifying was good, but wasn't fantastic. Elevated to third and fourth, respectively, as a result of the penalties for Perez and Leclerc. But they were hoping to maybe get a car on the second row without penalties, so they'd have been a bit disappointed in that sense. But for Lewis overall, had a great start, fended off from George, who did George things. It seems to be a common occurrence now for him. He's lost his head, but we'll come to him in a minute. But Hamilton held off from George at the start there, elevated up into second place, of course, and was running really well and really strongly in second. He was pretty much a lonely second in all fairness to him. Wasn't quite matching Max, but certainly had a good pace to put Max under pressure to the point where Red Bull needed to copy what Mercedes did. And then when the slow stop happened for Max, Hamilton took the lead and drove really, really well. Did all he could. Really did all he could. He was on a harder compound of tyre, him being on the hardest, and also the Mercedes pace overall from that Red Bull just was astonishingly different and vast. And it's like Red Bull turn everything up for the race as opposed to qualifying, isn't it? But yeah, Lewis did all he could, and it was so good and encouraging to see Mercedes up there fighting again, wasn't it? You know, okay, it wasn't a fair fight this time around, but it was nice to see him up there. And I did want Lewis to win, because it was one of those though. I was on the edge because like Max has won loads this year, absolutely. You know, Max has dominated the season pretty much after his first couple of mechanical breakdowns. And he's dominated the season, but this is the one place where I kind of wanted Max to win after the passing of Dietrich. So I was like, that would be a nice way to wrap up the constructors with a victory for Dietrich. But then at the same time, I was like, no, I want Lewis to win, because Lewis hasn't won this season. It'd be nice to see a different driver win. It'd be nice to see the Mercedes get a bit of a confidence boost going into the next season. So I was on the fence with who I wanted to win there. And overall, I think Mercedes have got to be happy with this result anyway. So yeah, Lewis Hamilton overall did the best he could in qualifying, did the best he could in the race, did an exceptional job actually in the race, didn't he? And for Lewis Hamilton, it's going to be 11 points on the cruel room. I think he drove a fantastic race. And like I said, it might not have been the victory, but encouraging signs there that Leclerc really didn't have the pace to catch up and overtake Hamilton, and he was fending off really well as well in stages where the likes of Perez were closing in and Leclerc were closing in early. So yeah, overall Hamilton, a stunning job really, a stunning job, and one that Mercedes could be proud of and one that Hamilton could be proud of. It wasn't the victory that they all wanted, of course, but the best job really, and Hamilton did phenomenally well. So yeah, 11 points to Lulu. And in third place is Sha-la-la. Here he is, Sha-la-la, on his way up into the podium positions after starting down in P12 with a 10th place penalty for engine and turbo, was it? I believe that's the two that he had, 5 places each. So yeah, qualified second. It was nice that Sainz got pole on merit. I must say that. It was nice that he got the tick, like, I didn't need any penalties, I just got pole, genuinely. It was nice to see that. It was only a fraction away off his teammate though, mind, but that's all racing. It didn't really matter anyway. 12th, 11th, it's all much of a muchness, isn't it? So yeah, had a great start initially, then got stuck behind the Aston Martins for a while, didn't it? Them Aston Martins were doing really well in the early phases of the race. So he was stuck there in that P7, P8 area, somewhere around there for quite a while, and that really hindered his progress from there to be able to make a genuine, legitimate charge for the lead. So when Leclerc got bottled up behind them for a little while and the likes of Perez were just able to fairly easily slip through, kind of made you wonder, like, oh, this is okay now, but this is the fight for victory is already over. He's already like a whole pit stop behind. Of course, the safety cars, made way for that and changed the dynamic of the race somewhat. But then that final stint where Leclerc had no pace at all, when you're thinking, right, okay, even if he can't beat Max, he should at least be able to go with Max and then go get Hamilton. But in the end, it was quite a margin away from Lewis. It was about 5 seconds behind him. So yeah, it was a weird one. They had good pace at the start, made good progress, got stuck behind the Aston Martins for a bit too long. Safety cars played into their hand, of course. Max's slow stop played into their hands as well. Up to second, but then that final phase of the race, just no pace at all. And third place is a great recovery from 12th, of course, but if they've had more pace, they could have had P2 there. So yeah, I think Ferrari will be a little bit concerned about Mercedes going into these last couple of races, definitely, because that wasn't encouraging at all. So for Sha-la-la, it's going to be 8 points on the cruel room to him. Great recovery drive, P12 up to P3, absolutely stunning. But just a shame that final phase wasn't good for him. And I'm sure it was the car more than Charles, but, you know, some drivers had some brilliant comebacks this weekend. Some were sent down to the back. We'll come all to them in a minute, of course. But yeah, Charles Leclerc overall, a thoroughly deserved 8 points, but no more. And then we come to Sergio Perez, Checo, finishing in P4. It was great to see him drive alongside Max at the end of the race there. He almost got Charles, didn't he? He almost got Charles. He was only within 7/10 of him by the end, and he was quite a margin behind him with a bit of front wing missing as well. So, yeah, maybe had Perez not had that damage from early on. Collected it when he made a move up the inside of Bottas at the start, didn't he? Just touched. Bottas didn't really see him, had to jump out of the way. Made a slight bit of contact. The front wing end plate flew off. And yeah, here he is finishing in P4. You know, if that had not happened, maybe just maybe, we could have seen him on the podium instead, but we're never going to know. And Perez had some good pace overall, given the damage to the car he had and where he started down in 9th. So, yeah, an okay race by Checo. Again, Red Bull wrap up the constructors, so fantastic effort there. And overall for Sergio Perez, he's going to get the same points as Shalala. He's going to get 8 points on the crawl room. Some people might think that's generous considering he started a little bit higher up, but I think overall Perez had the better race. It was just unfortunate that he sustained the damage he sustained early on. He went very aggressive at the start, and he had to, really. And yeah, overall, I think, you know, maybe had the safety cars played a little bit different. Perez could have maybe jumped Leclerc in that phase somewhere. But overall, you know, great effort. Perez had a brilliant comeback. Qualifying wasn't that good for him, but overall, great recovery. P4 from P9. And yeah, 8 points to Checo. Then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for Carlos Sainz.
Hey, everyone is saying now, was my F1 career fixed? Nope, I really was that bad.
Yes, that's right. George of the Russell secures his second Palmer in 3 races. Unbelievable stuff, George. He might have got away with it with the FIA giving him a lenient 5-second time penalty for taking a car out of the race. I mean, what are we doing? Like, oh, God, it was so annoying. Like, George, what have you done? I think he's lost his head. I honestly think he's lost his head. I think he's put too much pressure on himself to beat Hamilton this season. He's got a 20-point cushion now, even after this race, going into the final few races. But I think the way George is driving, I can honestly see Hamilton end up beating him. So, yeah, he deserves a Palmer absolutely for that. He took Sainz out of the race. Sainz could do nothing. Absolutely nothing about that. You know, and then, like, for starters, like the fucking British bias of the Sky Sports F1 commentary with fucking David Croft just trying to say, oh God, he does my head in so fucking much. But then even Martin Brundle joined in as well. It were like, oh yeah, absolutely, penalty for George. And then we looked at some other replays and we're like, oh yeah, I can kind of see why George did that. Oh, fuck off. You can kind of see why George did that. He just drove into the side of him. Like, he hit him hard enough to bust Sainz's radiator, so he retired on lap 1. Like, for fuck's sake, stop being a bitch to the British, will you? Fucking hell. I mean, I know I get criticised because there was like 2 races where there was the 3 Brits in 1, 2, 3 on the crew room. Like, Jesus Christ. But at the end of the day, you have a shit race, you get a Palmer. And, you know, P5, his teammate nearly won. That's not brilliant. He only got a 5-second time penalty, which is lenient as shit. You may as well not bother giving him any at all. And the fact he took Sainz out of the race, like, yeah, there you go. Definitely Palmer worthy. That, I'm sorry, that's Palmer worthy. So yeah, there you go. George Russell, after such a brilliant start to the season, after this summer break has really all come undone, hasn't it? He's done shite. Done really shite, hasn't he, of recent races. So yeah, Palmer of the week to George Russell. And then we come to Lando Norris. Here he is in the McLaren, securing 6th, which is the best of the rest this time around. A fantastic job, really. I've just looked at what score I've given him. I feel it might be harsh by a point, but having judged what other people did in their races, respectively, you know, I feel it's fair in comparison to the other drivers. I mean, let's be honest, Norris didn't really have much pace, did he? You know, he was through into Q3 by the skin of his teeth with the Zhou Guan Yu's lap time getting deleted. Then in the race itself, it was 9th, 10th, 9th, 10th, 9th, 10th, 9th, 10th. Then they elected to stop him again, which dropped him to about 12th, and then he was able to carve his way through on the tyres on the drivers that have got worn out tyres, and bring himself through and get into 6th place, which was a fantastic drive and a really good drive. That I don't put any onus on Lando at all for that. I think he drove incredibly well and certainly deserved the 6th place he achieved. Overall, though, like I mentioned, he had a great drive, but there were just a lot more impressive drivers out there this weekend that I really took a shining to, and I think you know who they're going to be. So for Lando Norris, it's 8 points on the crawl room. Really should be 9 now I think about it. Should be another point on there. But nonetheless, swings and roundabouts on the crawl room. I've been generous to Lando in earlier races. It all evens out. I know it does. So yeah, Lando Norris, great effort, fantastic drive. 6th place, crucial points for McLaren, and yeah, we'll come to the other drivers in a second, of course, and we'll come to the permutations of who finished behind him, but then who didn't, because there's a rant on the way for that. Yeah, but overall, fantastic drive by Lando, harsh by a point, but yeah, 8 points to Lando Norris. Then finishing in 7th place, 8th on the road though. 8th on the road. We'll come to why in a second. It is, of course, Sebastian Vettel. Oh my days, what a drive this weekend by Seb. Great qualifying, great race. It was such an exciting race for him. He should have really, I mean, in theory, that 6th place should be his, shouldn't it? That was where he was going to be. But yeah, what a fantastic drive by Seb. Unbelievable stuff. Stroll was ahead of him for the first part of the race, of course. Got lucky with that first safety car period where Seb could effectively make a free pit stop. Stroll had just pitted, so he came out back ahead of him, but they'd played a brilliant team game throughout. Those two Aston Martins, line astern, DRSing each other, you know, making sure that the other competitors didn't get past them. Drove fantastically well, did our Seb. And then he had that slow pit stop, 16 point something. It was nearly 17 seconds, stationary in the pit lane. He tumbled all the way down from 6th to 13th and then had to make his fight through the field once again, didn't he? Unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff. So yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy, really, that Seb managed to achieve this. And I'm not sure what's going on with that other car, because the Alpine team have appealed what has been done, so maybe this will be out of date and maybe the position will get reinstated, but it won't because FIA are fucking dicks. But nonetheless, this result of him finishing 7th overall now means that they're only within 1 point of Alfa Romeo now, only within 1 point, and if the positions get reinstated and Alpine take back their rightful 7th, then it'll only be 3 points. So this was a crucial race for Aston Martin, and they drove really, really well. Vettel, slow pit stop, carved his way through the field. That last lap overtake on K-Mag as well. Wow, oh wow. So it's going to be 11 points to Sebastian Vettel. What a stunning drive. What a stunning weekend. Great to see him up here again. Great to see him have some fighting spirit in him as well. Fantastic stuff. So yeah, 11 points to Seb. Then we come to Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. 9th on the road, 8th overall, but what a stunning drive he had. He needs to be commended for that. He drove brilliantly well to hold on with those medium tyres that had done 30 odd laps. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. That wouldn't normally work, and yes, Seb got him at the end, but I don't hold that against K-Mag whatsoever, because K-Mag was fighting a losing battle there. And the fact that he managed to make it go down to the last corner of the last lap, I think has to be commended on its own. You know, like, he drove such a great race on knackered tyres from an early on, like 30 odd laps on mediums, at a circuit that was high degradation. They were tipping 2 stoppers as an absolute minimum, and they just dragged those mediums out, and it worked out for him in the end. Finishing 9th on the road, 8th in the end, 4 points. That's crucial for them because they gap AlphaTauri by a little bit now. There were going to be 1 point ahead of them. They're now 2 points ahead of them. So that's very crucial for that battle for 8th in the Constructors. So this Alpine thing has got a lot of permutations, not just for Alpine, but for the teams lower, because a lot of teams have benefited and lost out as a result of that penalty. So, yeah, I hope it gets reinstated, though. Like, it's so annoying. But anyway, we're going to come to him when we get to where he actually finished. So, yeah. Overall for K-Mag, though, it's a full 10 points for K-Mag. Drove really well. Yeah, he was out in Q1, didn't have the early pace, but made those tyres last. You know, at the end of the day, the strategy only goes so far. As took the gamble, and they could rely on K-Mag to deliver that gamble, and it paid off really well. That's the first points they've scored in quite a while as well, isn't it? I don't think they've had any since Austria, maybe? I'm not sure. It's been a bit of a dry spell, though, hasn't it? But especially for K-Mag as well, because it's been Mick picking up the points mainly. But yeah, nonetheless, great drive. 10 points to Kevin Magnussen. Now finishing in 9th place instead of 10th, it is Yuki Tsunoda. So disqualified on the cruel room anyway, but picking up a point on the road, 2 points in the end, unless all this gets reinstated and then this is bollocks, but nonetheless. Yeah, Yuki overall though, disqualified on the cruel room anyway. One of his better drives though, wasn't it? One of his better drives. He was matching Gasly, you know, putting Gasly under pressure. They were doing really well as a pairing. Bit like the Aston Martins further up the road, but these were further back. And yeah, overall I think Tsunoda had a great race, but disqualified anyway, so I can't award him points. So yeah, disqualified anyway, but a good race by Yuki. Then, last of the points finishers that didn't score a point in the race, it is Esteban Ocon.
I have 12 points on my licence. That's 3 more than I ever scored with my 2 years at Renault, you bastards.
And there we are, Palmer of the week to Esteban Ocon, and that doesn't change regardless of what's happened after the race, because Esteban Ocon picks up 1 lucky point as a result of his teammate's demise that isn't the team's fault, isn't Alonso's fault. And here's Esteban Ocon that wasn't sent airborne, wasn't sent flying over an Aston Martin, and just scrapes a point by the skin of his teeth. So wouldn't have scored points anyway. So wasn't in the points when he crossed the line. Palmer of the week worthy, I'm afraid. That was a Pinot where out in Q1 as well. Let's not forget that, qualifying 18th. Started from the pit lane, but that's not going to save you, because the only reason you start from the pit lane is because they decided to change all the components because you were qualified 18th. You were so bad. So yeah, Palmer of the week to Esteban Ocon. The only saving grace is he did scrape a point, but that's not Palmer. That's not going to give you points on the cruel room. That's Palmer worthy all day long. So yeah, Alpine lucky in some sense that they scored a point, but Esteban Ocon should have really been up there alongside Alonso, but wasn't in the end. Yeah, just Pinot where really. Pinot where shouldn't have had a point, scored a point. Some consolation to Alpine, but what a joke. So yeah, Palmer of the week to Esteban Ocon. Finishing 12th on the road and then 11th on this list, of course, so just missing out on the points. It is Alexander Albon in the Williams. And what could be said for Alex? It was a great drive, wasn't it, overall? It was really, really good from him. Great qualifying, fractionally away from Q3, actually. Yeah, fractionally away from Q3 after Zhou's lap time deletion. Started in 8th as a result of all the penalties. And was running 8th, 9th, that sort of area for quite a while, and then just tumbled down the order in the final couple of laps as he was clinging on for dear life to that P10, wasn't he? In the end, a few cars slipped through, and here he is finishing in 11th place overall. So yeah, an unfortunate race weekend by Williams. They'd have loved to have scored a point there. I think Albon did a great job with the car he's got. And overall for Alex, it's going to be a solid 7. A solid 7 on the cruel room. Maybe harsh by a point there, I've got to be honest. Maybe I've undervalued him by a point. But overall, you know, Alex has had a great comeback after his operation. You know, let's forget Singapore. You know, the fact he even came back to Singapore at all is an absolutely amazing achievement. And then you come here this weekend, deliver what you should have really delivered in Singapore had you not had your issues and your problems and your appendix out, you know. So, yeah, overall, I think it was a great drive, a great comeback drive by Alex, and this is what he's going to be like for the rest of the season now. Like I say, maybe harsh by a point there, though. I think looking back, he should have deserved an 8, particularly with that qualifying effort. But nonetheless, it's a solid 7 to Alex. He's had a great year. And, yeah, I mean, if he keeps up this performance, then who knows? He could well be in the running for a Palmer the Cruel Room Championship next year. So, yeah, that's all way ahead into the future, of course. But a great drive by Alex, nonetheless. Impressive performance by Williams. 7 points overall. Then we come to Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo, and what could be said for Zhou? It's another one of them, what could have been weekends, isn't it, for Alfa Romeo, it must be said. Zhou had a lap time good enough to get through into Q3, but unfortunately was fractionally over the white line. Lap time deletion meant he started in 14th, then the team elected to take penalties as a result of that. Started 19th, although I think he was promoted back up to 18th if I remember rightly. I can't quite remember how that works, but I think with Ocon dropping back and all that lot, it meant he started 18th. But in the end, it was on the fringes of points, a bit like an Albon, wasn't it? On the fringes of the points, that in that final stage, that 9th, 10th area, electing not to stop again and let's just try and squabble for the points. And he lost out, unfortunately, lost out. 13th on the road, 12th in the race as a result of the bullshit penalty that we'll come to. And Zhou overall. It's a middle of the road 5 to Zhou, because it's difficult to judge where Alfa Romeo are at the minute, but I think that was a strategic error. Zhou did all he could. Qualifying was unfortunate, but Zhou's fault ultimately. And we'll see how he goes next year. We'll see what he does for the remaining few races. But Alfa Romeo really needs some points now. Desperate for points. Absolutely desperate, because Aston Martin are going to get them. Aston Martin are definitely going to get them now. Looking at the pace that they've had the past couple of races, they're getting 6th in the Constructors. Alfa Romeo needs something drastic now to go their way, because they've had no luck at all since, Spain? I don't know. It disappeared rather rapidly, didn't it? That strong start of the season, they'll be thankful for it, because that's really cushioned them from the other drivers. Because you think if they were doing what they did now at the start of the year and just kept that going, they'd be last in the Constructors. Easily last. Maybe just squeezing ahead of Williams, but they wouldn't be safe. So there you go. Zhou Guanyu, just a middle of the road 5 to him. Then in 14th place, finishing in 13th as a result of the penalties, it is Pierre Gasly. And oh God, everything that could go did go wrong for Pierre, didn't it? What an unfortunate weekend. We went on board with him in qualifying, and that car looked like a right pig to handle. It weren't stopping, it weren't turning, it were permanently understeering. It was a right bag of machines. It was an absolute farce, wasn't it? Then he had to serve a 5-second time penalty. Was it for track limits that? I can't remember. Oh, it was for falling more than 10 car lengths back, which is Perez got a warning for, but will penalise Gasly. Fuck off. Anyway, he got a 5-second time penalty for that. Then the team didn't serve it correctly, so then had another 5 seconds added on. And in the end, here he is. I think he finished 11th, though, on the road. I can't remember where the fuck he finished, actually, now, because he's been dropped down and then put back up again. But either way, disastrous weekend by Gasly. Not all he's doing at all. Just one of those things. So it's going to be 6 points on the cruel room to Gasly. I feel that's harsh by a point. But again, cruel to be kind and all that lot. It was just why? There wasn't even any point in him turning up, because it was just frustration from FP1 to fucking finish your line. So, yeah, there you go. Pierre Gasly, 6 points on the cruel room. Then, finishing in 15th on the road, elevated to 14th, of course, it is Mick Schumacher. And what could be said for Mick's race weekend overall? Just unfortunate, I think, once again. They elected to stop Mick, but Mick stopping put him right down the back of the pack. He got bloody fed off by Latifi, which picked him damage up, and just all a bit of a mess, wasn't it? All a bit of a mess. So yeah, I don't think the strategy was the right call. I think they should have gone balls to the wall and really just gone, look, let's keep both asses out there, because there'd have been a great chance that both could have finished inside the points. Unfortunate, really, is all I'm going to say for Mick. It didn't look like he had the pace, out in Q1, out-qualified by his teammate, but then the race kind of went Haas's way, but then it quickly didn't go Mick's way again. After he was running around in 10th for quite a while as well, wasn't he? So yeah, all a bit unfortunate for Mick. And that's why it's going to be 4 points to Mick Schumacher in the Haas. His teammate did a lot better job, and of course that is mainly down to the strategy of K-Mag just keeping going and trying it. Unfortunate really. Apparently it's between Mick and Hulkenberg for the seat next year for Haas, and it's a tough one because I really love Hulkenberg, but at the same time, he's had his chance now. I think Mick needs another season, but that's just me. Let's see what happens. But yeah, an unfortunate one, and I think it'd be unfair if they were to judge him by this race alone. And a bit like, Singapore would be unfair to judge Mick's weekend because he was taken out by George, So these last couple of races haven't been Mick's fault, but they've just not been anything special either. But in the grand scheme of things, you could look at yourself and go, look, this is how he could have scored points, as opposed to he didn't. There's a lot of options there and a lot of alternative of how his race could have panned out and how he could have scored the points. So yeah, unfortunate weekend for Mick. 4 points on the Cruel Room to him. And then, crossing the line in 7th after a miraculous recovery, dropping and demoted all the way down to 15th. With a 30-second time penalty for his wing mirror falling off, it is Fernando Alonso. And what a load of shit. I cannot believe what I thought it was a joke. I genuinely thought it was a joke. When I turned my phone on this morning and it says Alonso, I was like, yeah, come off it. What spoofs parody account's this? Oh no, it's real. It's real. Now, Haas appealed. Perez for the wing damage and Alonso for the mirror falling off. Now, why didn't Haas appeal George? Because George had identical front wing damage with a trailing end plate like that, like K-Mag has been called for before. With a black and orange flag. We saw it at Canada, we saw it at Singapore. So, what on earth are the... I'm not sure what Haas were thinking there. I'm really not. Okay, fair enough, the wing end plate of Perez's fell off. Alonso's wing mirror fell off. But George has stayed attached like that, but wasn't called in with a black and orange flag like K-Mag was. So that's a bit confusing for me. Do I blame Haas at all? No, I do not. I don't blame Haas one single bit for wanting an investigation into this. And because at the end of the day, they have lost 2 races there, with K-Mag having the pit stop for the wings, twice in positions where he was doing well, where points could have been possible, and then when you have a wing change out of sequence with not only your own pit stop, but you've got it's effectively a penalty. You're losing 40 seconds in a race where you didn't want to lose 40 seconds. You're out of the race. And I completely understand Haas's frustration. I don't understand why they didn't appeal the Mercedes of George, though. Like I said, I think that was a bit of a lost cause for them, a bit of a missed opportunity, because George's wing was definitely identical, or as near as identical as you're going to get to what K-Mag has suffered. And then for the FIA to look into it and go, no, Perez is okay, but Alonso, oh no, Fernando, that's dangerous, your wing mirror falling off. You are going to get 30 seconds on your race time. What the fuck is that all about? So why are we penalising a team that wasn't called in? They weren't called in. They didn't get a black and orange flag. The scrutineers at the end of the race said that the car was legal and fine. So why do we penalise a driver whose fault the accident wasn't that it was involved in? And why do we penalise a team and make them lose points because of the FIA's and the stewards' failings to award him a black and orange flag in the race? Alpine are not going to go out and go, right, let's bring him in and stick another wing mirror on it, or let's pull that wing mirror off in pits. If they're not told to do it, they won't do it. What on earth? What a crock of shit. Absolute fucking joke. I really hope this decision gets reversed, because it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And I just cannot understand where the consistency is, because at the end of the day, it fell off. How many times have we seen wing mirrors falling off cars? How many times have we seen bits falling off cars? And they always say, if the piece comes off, then we're okay. It seems to be an unwritten rule that the bit falls off, yeah, okay, it's fallen off. But they could see that Alonso's wing was flapping for many, many laps before it finally fell off. They could have black and orange flagged him. And I cannot see and I cannot understand how it's fair that they are penalising a team and a driver for something that they were not told to rectify in the race. And then they're adding 30 seconds onto a race time. Why? It has massive implications to the Constructors' Championship. Not just for Alpine, But for Aston Martin, for Alfa Romeo, for Alfa Tauri and for Haas, it has a massive impact on those teams now in terms of gaining and losing points on their rivals. It is unacceptable that this is allowed to happen. It's an absolute farce. And then for him not to award Perez a penalty, and a lot of people are going to say, yeah, but Perez was over 30 seconds ahead of George. That is beside the point. If you're going to be fair and consistent, Sergio's front wing end plate fell off. It fell off. If Alonso's wing mirror falls off and it's 30-second time penalty, then his front wing end plate fell off. It's a 30-second time penalty. Where's the consistency? Even with bullshit rules. So this bullshit rule that I don't agree with can't even be consistent. It's an absolute joke, and I am getting sick to death of Formula 1 now with shit like this. It just undermines the entire race weekend overall, which I thought was phenomenal. I thought it was fantastic. It was exciting. I got a bit of mojo back, and I was telling you all how fucked off I was with this year. That race really did it for me in terms of, wow, that got me mojo back. That got me feeling the passion and the love for Formula 1 again. We could have had a Hamilton win. We had a hunt down. We had slow pit stops. We had Perez making his way through with a damaged wing. We had Vettel making his way through with a slow pit stop. We had Alonso fucking airborne, slamming it into a wall, carried on going, scored 7th, and then we get the bullshit at the end because wherever Alonso finished, it doesn't fit their fucking agenda. It really, really, really is winding me up now. Unbelievable. Fucking joke. So I hope the penalty gets reversed. Alpine are appealing. They're saying that the Haas's appeal came outside the window by 24 minutes, so shouldn't even be considered for a penalty because it was outside the window of protest, which is fair enough in its sense. And then at the same time, it's a joke because they're saying, well, hang on a minute, you could have told us at any point during that race to rectify it, and we would have done. We weren't informed, we weren't going to rectify it. Anyway, there we go. So Fernando Alonso is awarded 11 points on the cruel room, and he shall stay and remain with those 11 points because of what he did this weekend was an incredible drive. Talking about the incident itself briefly with the Aston Martin and the Alpine, I've looked at it a lot. I really have looked at it a lot. Alonso called it a racing incident. Stroll called it a racing incident. Stroll's been penalised 3 places for it. In my mind, I'm happy to call it a racing incident as well. The only thing I would say was that, okay, yeah, Stroll did jink left late. But the angle and trajectory of where Alonso was, I think even if Stroll had stayed straight, I think Alonso might have moved a little bit too late for him to be able to get round him without contact anyway. So, yeah, it was one of those things. I don't lay blame on either driver. Racing incident for me itself. And what a fantastic comeback for Alonso. Thoroughly deserved that P7. And it was all for nothing. All in vain. You may as well just retired the car then, hadn't you? What a joke. I just think that the FIA had to prove that there were consistency by being ridiculously inconsistent. Fuck knows. Anyway, there we go. So yeah, 11 points to Fernando Alonso. I don't care that he's finished 15th in the end. That was nothing to do with him. That was nothing to do with Alpine. That's the fucking bullshit FIA. There we go. That's the end of that rant. Then we come to Daniel Ricciardo, finishing in 16th place on the road and stays 16th. Doesn't benefit anything by Alonso's penalty because he was that fucking dogshit. Disqualified anyway, we know. But was behind Latifi for a lot of the race. How bad is that? So yeah, Nicholas Latifi was... oh God, Daniel Ricciardo, fuck's sake. His teammate's 6th and he's 16th. This is ridiculous. Really is. It really is unacceptable. So yeah, Daniel Ricciardo disqualified anyway. I don't want to talk about him. The more I think about it, the more it annoys me. There we go. Last of the finishers, it is Nicholas Latifi as mentioned, and what a fucking joke. Oh my God. Oh. Fell off on his own in the early stages, then went and punted Mick off, and oh God, I just can't be bothered. Disqualified anyway, and he finished last. Not interested. Boring. Next. Then we come to the list of the retirements, of course, and the last retirement in the race, the first on this list, is Lance Stroll. Already gone into detail with Alonso's rant there about what I felt about the incident. Stroll had done a cracking job. Great qualifying. Great race. Unfortunate with the pit stop to lose out to his teammate, but was doing well anyway. Then the incident happened where Alonso got a massive overspeed on him. Stroll jinked late. He did jink left late, I know he did, and Alonso hit the back of him and climbed over him. But the angle where Alonso hit the back of him, I think even if Stroll had stayed there, I think we were still touching wheels. I think there'd have still been wing contact or something, because I think Alonso moved late, Stroll moved later, and it was going to be always going to be a recipe for disaster no matter what. Stroll's been given a 3-place grid penalty, and that's fair enough. I can accept that, and I can understand why they've done that. But for me personally, it was a racing incident, and as mentioned, if Stroll calls it a racing incident, if Alonso calls it a racing incident, then that's it. You know, I'm happy for the drivers to call it like that. Apparently they had a chat afterwards as well, didn't they? And it was all quite smooth between them, quite cool and calm. So I think just one of those things, unfortunately. So, middle of the road, 5 points to Lance Stroll. A lot of people were really kicking off about that move and how Lance Stroll should be gone. And yeah, you know, he's dog shit most of the time and this year, but he's had some good performances, and that was a cracking performance until then. And I just see that as an unfortunate racing incident where, judging by the overspeeds of the cars with the tyres and the degradation and the cars out of position and things like that, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner, to be honest with you, in that race. And if it wasn't going to be Alonso and Stroll, I'm sure someone else would have done it. So, yeah, just like to note as well, great avoiding action by everyone behind him to not hit Stroll or Alonso's car as it was going all over the place. There was a lot of debris, a lot of carnage, but that's okay to leave on the road. But obviously when your front wing end plate falls off or your wing mirror falls off, then we need a full investigation. But let's leave shit all over the road after an accident. That's absolutely fine. Good stuff, FIA. So yeah, 5 points to Lance Stroll. Then we come to Valtteri Bottas.
The FIA have just announced that Max Verstappen has been disqualified from the 2022 season, and with Leclerc's 5-second time penalty, it means that I'm the 2022 Formula 1 World Champion. Incredible.
Oh, fucking hell, Valtteri. This was really encouraging signs for Alfa Romeo this weekend. Oh, looked like both cars were into Q3 briefly, but at least Bottas was in the end. And then what happened in the race? He got mugged at the start, pummeled down to about 11th, and then just fell off. Oh my God, after such a strong start to the year, and I can't believe he's still 10th. 10th in the driver's standings. How unbelievable is that? He's not scored points in years. Such a strong start. He was matching and rivaling the Mercedes at the start of the year. They're now 200 points each or whatever, and here he is still on 46 and nowhere. Oh my God. It's only the fact that Ricciardo's done shite this year and that Aston Martin had no pace at all at the start of the year. Why he's ahead of everyone, because had they had some luck, then they'd have been miles ahead of him. So yeah, 10th still in the standings, and I've no idea how. But yeah, Palmer of the Week 2, Valtteri Bottas. And then the last on this list, the first to go out in the race, of course, he may as well not bothered starting. Carlos Sainz from pole position. Taken out by George. Okay, he'd lost the lead. Does he deserve to be taken out for it? Absolutely not. And taken out he was. Absolutely fucking pummeled. Oh, God, what a shame. What an absolute shame. Anyway, there we go. 5 points to Carlos Sainz. Pole position was stunning, and it all went wrong from there. So there we have it, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the US Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Just got any drivers too high, any too low. Let me know what you think about that bullshit penalty for Fernando Alonso. And as always, yeah, feel free to comment exactly what your thoughts on the race were. The scoreboard updated with the points I've just awarded are on the screen now. Feel free to check out and see where your favourite driver is. Risers, fallers. George Russell has lost his position at the top after looking so secure going into the summer break. He really hasn't delivered these last few races, has he? So it is really all to play for. Tied to the top, realistically top 6, still in with a shout at this title. It really could go down to anyone now. It really could. A massive thanks as always go out to Dan of Mushy Gaming for providing me with the scoreboard, the intro, and the little icons of the drivers in the corner of the screen as I talk about them. An absolutely fantastic effort by him. Really appreciate it. And without him, this series will be more pointless than it already is. And who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for the Jolie and Palmer skits that you all know and love by now. I'll see you all in is it a couple of weeks or next week? I don't fucking know, but I'll see you then anyway. Mexico next time around. It might be next week. I'm not interested. But yeah, you'll see me anyway. Tuesday, 6 o'clock. Remember, set the reminder and all that shit because I need it. And I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And as always, much love.